Hey everyone, how's it going out there? I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. I've got a great tip here I wanted to show you that you've probably heard something about before, but I wanted to show it to you in action and talk about my experience with it, and that is using tarps to kill weeds. I've done this quite a lot over the past few years, and I'm really liking it more and more. So here's a few tips and just general information that I've learned and how to use them well. So I've got a pretty big tarp here. This is something like a 15 by 30 approximately. I don't really know. I didn't buy this tarp. Somebody gave it to me and I never had it measured. I actually got a few big tarps. There was a school program that was moving buildings and apparently had several large tarps, and somebody called me and asked if I wanted them. So I got them. I use these quite a bit in my garden. This is a large garden area. This is about 120 feet by 40 feet wide here, and I weed the whole thing as of 2 years ago now, every year with these tarps in the spring. The theory of the tarps is, number one, it cuts out sunlight to kill the weeds. That's true. But even in a garden that doesn't have much weeds like my areas out here, if I put the tarp down, it's going to still really reduce my weed pressure throughout the year and in the following years too, because that tarp insulates the soil a little bit and it catches the sun and helps to warm that soil up, and it works better. That part works better if you got a darker or a black tarp, but this is white on the other side. So it insulates the soil, helps the soil to warm up quicker, which encourages all the seeds from weeds that are already in your soil, all those to sprout. And even if you don't think so, your garden soil is most likely full of weeds. If you just took a handful of it and put it in a warm spot, you're probably going to see some weeds growing within the next month or two. It just kind of is. So this gets those weed seeds that are in the soil warm enough and moist enough consistently, so even the real stubborn seeds, they're going to want to germinate. Well, they do germinate, but unfortunately for them, they don't got any sunlight. So they're going to wither fairly quickly. If I'm using a nice dark black or really dark brown tarp, it works even faster because it catches more heat from the sun, warms the ground up quicker, germinates seeds quicker and faster, and then that extra heat from the darker tarp helps to wither them away. But just a regular tarp like this, 2 weeks. Put it in one spot for 2 weeks, and then I'll move it. Now that will destroy, that'll germinate and destroy a large number of weeds. It'll look like a blanket of dead shriveled weeds under here. Little dead shriveled little seedlings when I move my tarp. And there's going to be an insane amount of earthworm activity because just putting the tarp down here will encourage the earthworms to come up closer to the surface of the soil and to dig up and down from the surface all the time. I'm going to have a carpet of earthworm castings under this tarp when I move it away in 2 weeks. The only important part with these tarps, got to make sure my head stays in the film here. The only important part with these tarps, well, there's a couple. Number one, you have to weight it down. I weighted mine down just with heavy shovelfuls of soil all the way around, about every 2 feet. You can use stones. If you have large stones and big rocks, you can use those, but you need to have a lot. One little loose corner catching the wind and this whole thing can go up and turn like a sailboat. The sail just go off into the wind. Now, these tarps all generally have metal grommets on the corners and throughout the edges, so you can't use like a steel tent stake or a large steel stake and stake them down on the edges. That works fine too. I don't have a bunch of those. That would take a lot of stakes for this big of a tarp, so I'm just using soil. You have to at least put a heavy shovelful of soil every 2 feet. Some people put about 3 or 4 inches in the soil all the way across the edge, all the way around, about 3 inches tall of soil. Either way works. The important part is you've got to make sure it's not going to blow away. And it does help to put something out in the middle. I tossed a few stones and a shovel or two of soil in the middle too, just to help it not to flap up and down, because that can tend to make the corners and edges pull loose and the whole thing can catch the wind there. Other than that, you have to realize that for storage, just make sure it's dry, really. If it stays wet for a long time, you'll get some fungal growth on it, which doesn't really hurt the tarp itself because it's a plastic material, but you get a lot of, oh, windy. You get a lot of bugs around. You get a lot more mice coming through things if there's bugs in there, or voles, and they'll chew through things. Just make sure you want it dry and you want it folded up well. If you keep it clean, keep the dirt and the sand off, it'll also last longer. This tarp, I've only used it for 3 years now. It's got a hole here and there because I was a little careless in the shed at one point. But just be a little gentle with it, and this thing will last at least 10 years of putting it out for 2 weeks in your garden every year. Well, I hope you guys liked this video and learned something from it. I know I really love this technique. I love this technique, and I will use it every year. So I hope you guys can find some use from this. Don't forget to like the video. If you actually do like the video, just click the like button and look around for more good information. I'll see you guys next week. Bye now.